Hey everybody, welcome back to another video update. Working on the truck. So this one's kind of exciting, I'll let you just pick it out yourself here. Whoa! Big hole. Obviously the rear window's not in the best condition by itself, but you know, we're definitely not making it any better at this point yet. So, yeah. And there it is. Beautiful. So the reason I'm doing this a certain way is I'm trying to save that other half of the rear windshield. As you can tell, it's got some nice little stickers on it. It's got a little parking pass from when my uncle was in high school. So that's pretty cool. So definitely should let you know you need to wear your good protective gear with this stuff. I mean, the glass just goes everywhere. You know, this is the older style glass where it's just big chunks. You know, it doesn't turn into little scattery bits, but those scattery bits can be just as dangerous. So, of course, nice thick leather gloves, particulate mask. I probably could have worn safety glasses. That would have been smart, but, you know, don't always make the smart choice. So, as you can see, it came out pretty okay. There it is. So, the majority of this project is hopefully not staring at my back. So, the majority of this part of the project is just spending hours and hours just tooling away, getting this down to bare metal. And of course, you can see it shifting a little bit. It's on casters, furniture rollers, so it does happen to move. But you know, I'm very happy with the progress I've been making, and you know, this is a few weeks back when I actually get a chance to sit down and review the video and compile it and have it all edited. So it's definitely a lot further along than this, but you'll see the end result is so much better. I mean, I love patina as much as the next guy, but this baby blue with things that look like grease stains everywhere and, you know, just a big chunk of rust on the bottom of the back is just, it's a little too much. I know I said that I want to keep a lot of the dings and dents just to show Lorraine's life story, and I'm keeping up with that, but you know, you can have so much rust that it becomes more than a surface rust and blows holes through, and you just have to fill those holes, make them, you know, sealed at least. You don't have to readjust everything so that it's factory perfect or show quality, but you just have to make sure that everything is going to stay together. Nothing worse than hearing all the road noise from all these little holes that are stuck in the metal. I mean, this thing is not very well insulated to begin with, so just adding to that by having all these rust holes is not something that I'm looking forward to having. So, especially around the window here, we need to make sure that there's very little rust, paint, any leftovers, just because we want to make sure that when we put the rubber and the glass in there, it has a nice weatherproof and waterproof seal. So that'll help not only with noise, but making sure that we don't have water impingement and, you know, ruin the interior work once that's all done. So, of course, going back in with the sandpaper and the orbital sander just to make sure that I knock down every little bit as possible. And you know, you gotta work on planning a little bit more. That's all I'll say. So going forward, I had some trouble with, you know, while I'm doing the doors, I messed up the weather seals for the doors, so I'm gonna have to redo those. But making sure that this paint is as good as I can get it in my garage is my number one concern. Oh yeah, wear a respirator when you spray paint. You know, so a little bit of that, do as I say, not as I do. So, I mean, at this point, I just went straight through and finished up doing all of the all of that paint removal, and was wearing the mask the whole time, and just, you know, of course, sticking my nose right into where the fumes are. So of course, come back next day, get right back at it, and I paint kind of in a patchwork pattern just so that I could avoid a lot of the flash rusting. I tested a corner on the door recently and realized that I have a little bit more time than I expected till before rust actually shows up. So I've been starting to leave everything bare and painting it all at once. I think that's going to help with the end product. Then again, this is high fill primer, so it's just going to work the way that it works at the end of the day. And it's all about your prep and then your finish to make everything look nice. So I think I lowered the bar a little bit just because I'm leaving a lot of the dents, so it's not... I'll be proud with the end result, I'm sure, either way. But, of course, this was in the morning. I think this was one of the weekdays I had off. I went to a dentist appointment, so I'm like, I'll just take the whole day off, and was in bliss here, just working on my truck. So, just enjoying the time that I have and spending so much time getting to know the ins and outs of this truck. It's crazy how many things you didn't realize if you haven't been driving it and getting it ready. So there's that big orange rust spot that I was talking about that's just, oh my goodness, it's so unbearably ugly to look at. It's so bad. I end up taking special precautions against letting that turn into rust again if there's any dirt or rocks kicked up. And I don't know how long ago it was, but I figured out that I should use that dust brush and clean up my work surface, and it definitely showed me all the little areas that get covered up depending on what angle I'm using the drill brush on. So that was nice to have that realization, that aha moment that, maybe I should clean it up. Plus, it's nice to see the reflections, to see where all the bare metal is. Gives you a better reference point since, this isn't the most expensive camera, and it's definitely not set and staged, and there's not a bunch of professionals that are going through and making sure that the lighting is perfect and that we've blocked everything and that it's super quiet and that I'm being as effective as I can every second. But that's part of the joy of this, is that it's more spontaneous. It's on my speed, on my schedule. I don't have to worry so much, and I can just look at it and see, wow, I actually did all of that. And since I'm recording after the fact, of course, knowing how it turns out and just taking pride in doing my own work. I've had people tell me, oh, go and get it sandblasted. It'll be faster and easier and, maybe in the long run less expensiver, but there's just something about doing things that yourself and having a project and a purpose outside of work to just give you a little extra happiness in your life. This gives me a lot of time to think about what's going on, what I'm doing, where I'm going, and even more so, time to actually plan the rest of this build, because there's still some things that need to get figured out. So now we're back to the side a little bit on this wraparound corner, and you get a beautiful view of the interior of the truck. So a quick tour. There's a big hole in the floor. That's to access the transmission. So the transmission has a cover that goes right in there, and then your shifter comes right up the top. That button on the far left side, that's actually your ignition. So this truck is a push to start. However, it does require a key being turned for the ignition before it'll actually allow you to start the vehicle. And then you have choke levers and I believe a wiper up top that you can't see. And then I don't think the heating knobs are in there anymore since we took the heater core out, but plenty of controls in there. And then the seat, that's all the space you have, your bench seat, and then the gas tank's right behind it. So the majority of the space directly into the back of the cab is taken up by your gas tank. And I thought about switching it over to an under frame mounted between the frame rails, but there's just something about having the original frame in there and of course, the topic of the hole. There's a giant hole out the side of the back of your cab for filling up the gas tank that I would have to decide to do. And of course, they make ready-made patches for that, and you can delete it and do what you want with it. But there's just something about having it the way it was originally designed that's just so nice. I mean, I've done some comfort upgrades, like, for example, I have a shock on the front steering just so that if I hit hot holes, which of course I'm going to, living in Wisconsin, it really helps to dampen those and make it so that it doesn't shake. And I've got a new steering wheel, still working on getting that put together. Of course, when you try and pull an old steering wheel and use a really cheap steering wheel puller and bust a bolt off, and then you got to start trying to get that out. It makes it a little bit more of a task. But yeah, a lot of these videos, there's so much going on, and while it's nice to watch the time lapse and that, it's hard to just put more detail than I just did a lot of grinding and sanding to remove the paint. And as you can tell here, I'm actually getting into the rust, so this is a little bit more interesting. So on this part of the project, I used a lot of different heads for the drill, so a lot of different braided wires and flap wheels and a sort of thing. So that wire wheel there was really helpful for getting in those nooks and crannies of these three bends in the back. So that helped get a lot of hidden debris out. And of course, I like to use my sander as often as possible because it's just so flexible and gets into all these different places. And obviously realize that I should put my other wheel back on and see if I can't bust through the rust. And unfortunately, this area wasn't being super compliant with any of the brushes I really tried. So I just decided, you know what, let's go back to the paint and rust remover brush and use it for what it's for. And it made pretty clear work. A lot of it was just surface and cosmetic rust, but in that depth center there, in the middle line, there was a lot of pitting, and it extended to the passenger side, and so there's just so much pitting, and I just needed to take care of it. So in the end, once I had that rusty section pulled out, I actually hit it with some rust prevent and rust treatment spray paint. So you're actually supposed to leave the rust on there, and it's the same stuff as what I used on the bottom of the cab. So I'm hoping that'll help contain it. There's that rust barrier, yep. So that's what that is, plus primer. I didn't record it because I ran out of space on my memory card because, suck at planning sometimes. And you never really know how much you've actually filmed until you until you run out of space on the card. This is quite a bit of data for it to go through and upload and download and, side load, all that fun stuff. So I started out just trying to take another bite and find out where my fix actually ended. So I was doing some exploratory stuff to see how far, and I basically was just seeing, okay, well, here's the beige with the kind of clay red color primer that they used to use underneath it, and eventually it would just start turning into bare steel at the slightest hit. So that's when I knew I hit the primer, and so then I'd start backing off a little bit. So of course, if I start seeing black, then of course I knew I needed to back off. So I like to do these little sections, so I make these little lines and then follow it and deal with the sections. And sometimes I'll just get a propensity to just start hitting the edges. So the bottom edges kind of got some attention, the edges of the doors when I'm doing the doors, and the edges of the cab that actually go in towards the interior. Just little projects. There's no real rhyme or reason to anything that I do as pattern-wise of removing the paint. It's just, what my little brain thinks, oh, hey, light bulb, let's do it this way. Let's do it this way. So sometimes I do long, straight lines. Sometimes I'll section something off and then section it off again like I just did there. I mean, as long as I get the majority of the paint and the primer off in this big step, that's so much less that I have to do with the finishing work with the sander. Because even though the sander is I could have 50 grit on there, 50, 60 grit. It's still going to take a while, and you have to actually apply pressure towards the tips and the edges to actually get anything done. So this cab corner, and spoiler alert, the other cab corner have holes in them from just dust, debris, and water getting in there and impinging into the cab. And I mean, they're not terribly huge holes. It's just that I want, like I said before, I don't want excess road noise and water and any sort of debris getting in there. So I'm using some steel stick, the lazy man's steel weld. So just getting it in there instead of doing any type of welding or fiberglassing. Just got to use a 2-part epoxy. There you go. That's all it takes. So come back, hit it with a coat of paint, and save it. Look good. You can see the shadow of the video camera on the tripod there. And moving on to the next section. So we're finally going past the windows and actually digging into it a little bit more. And you don't realize how much real estate you have. You really don't. Like, this is at 16x speed, and it still seems like it's a long time. I mean, it just takes a long while to just do this stuff. It's monotonous, but every so often, when you're working in these different lines and shapes of the panels, you get a little bit of variety. You kind of have to problem solve and sort to think, oh, well, this wheel is spinning right, so if I'm holding it in my right hand, like I am now, it's going to be shooting all the dust down. But when I'm coming at it with my left hand, I am shooting it right into my face. And so anytime I'm doing this type of work, it's a shower day. It always is going to be. It's not one of those, I can put on a one-piece suit and just have my sleeves covered, have my thing zipped all the way up and just go to town on it. No, it's a shower day every single time. And then now, like I said, I just go into the smaller sections and make the lines and make everything easy. It's kind of like a puzzle. I like to do the edges first, so then I have a frame and don't have to worry about being delicate the whole time through when I return back to the edges. So as you can see, there's those little sections where it's a slightly different color than the primer, and that's really where I need to be working it. So it's gonna spread a long ways. And there's that fun gas tank hole. So that's actually where the filler nozzle goes in and goes right into the tank. So it's pretty easy to tell if you're getting full or not. So there's another little picture frame, just cleaning it up, cleaning it out. And you just get those little victories. If you do this, if you're doing this, just make little frames. Just take care of the small areas and just make small victories to get through. And I don't know if you can see it, but there's that cab corner. There's a pretty big size hole in there. I mean, it's about the size of my thumb, like the top of my thumb. And it took quite a bit of time to get that figured out. But now we're wrapping around and trying to take care of this day. I just wanted to get everything done and move on to the door. So I was just rocking away, and there's that blue spray paint test spot. May it rest in peace. Just when I was working on different projects and doing painting and things, I would always need a spot to test it. And of course, I wasn't really using much cardboard, so I just sprayed it right on the outside of the cab and kept moving. So there's been a lot of spots where you'll just see blue paint, black paint from when I was working on the engine, working on the trim, and just making everything look nice and pretty again. So it took a lot of time, and I don't know if I've covered this before. I don't really rewatch my videos, but these 4 amp hour batteries that Ryobi makes, they're worth the money. I mean, I think this whole back project, I maybe switched out my battery twice, and I got it all done with that. But the other ones, the 2 amp hour batteries, even though they have half the amp hours, it felt like they lasted maybe a quarter or a third of the time. And then these were just lifesavers. I could just sit there and kind of get in the zone and keep taking care of things. So as you can see, I'm starting the edging again. Go into edge, and then bring that edge up, then go to town. Just take care of it. So I've been experimenting with some of these different zooms, and of course this isn't an optical zoom, it's a digital zoom. So it's just a little bit uglier. You know, I probably could have achieved the same result just by cropping it, and probably would have saved myself some data. So there we go. We're right on the cusp, and cleaned it. So of course what you don't see is me wiping everything down with the wax and grease remover, and I do that for every single one, but I just feel like it gets boring it doesn't really transform it all that much. It kind of changes it a little bit. So there it is. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Look forward to the next one.